Hello, beautiful people. It's been a while since I've uploaded on my YouTube, other than my shorts. I do YouTube shorts more often than I do just long form. But I just wanted to come again and make a long form video. I kept saying I'm going to try to do more, and I'm trying. I'm still in North Macedonia, Skopje, the capital city, and still exploring here. I always come back to North Macedonia after traveling, doing 3 months here and 3 months there, because I'm still trying to find my forever home here in Europe. And so still takes bouncing around a bit. But this year, I've narrowed it down. I've said that many times before. So I'll save that content for another day when I am there. But I wanted to just post this. This content is just definitely about North Macedonia, and I know there's Skopje specifically, because I know there's a lot of people who are interested in this country, also with Albania being very popular, and me spending many months in Albania for the last 2 years. I was going back and forth to Albania, Vlorë specifically, but I spent a lot of time in Tirana. And Albania is a wonderful place too for, I'm an American for those who just discovered or just kind of stumbled on my content. Yeah, so I'm an American from California. I've been traveling abroad for 10 years, but specifically for the last 5 years, I've been consistently in Europe. So with that being said, I want to do the comparisons for those people who are still kind of on the fence about where they want to go, either for holiday or for long-term stay, because that's an interest now. Yeah, many Americans, specifically ones I know, have been interested in Albania because, a lot of people know now that if you are an American and a lot of other passport holders, you can stay on a tourist visa for a year in Albania, and also in Georgia, the country Georgia. But North Macedonia, which is where I am, no, it's still a part of the Schengen zone, so you still can be here on your tourist visa, but only 3 months. So I want to make that clear. But the comparisons as far as the culture, and I'm actually just wanted to kind of talk about that. I like both cultures. I do like Eastern Europe. It's one of my favorite places to visit over and over again, because I feel like the vibe is more you get more steeped in the culture. And when you're on the east part of Europe, where western part of Europe, you kind of it's a mixture of everything, and it reminds me kind of the West in other the United States, as far as the way things are moving. People are moving faster still in the western parts of Europe, just like in a lot of Western countries. Whereas in the east part of Europe, I think they still move a little slower, but still a lot can be done, and it's amazing culture. But I think for those who are looking for somewhere that's slower, where it's more family, ingrained and good for children and raising families, I would say the east part of Europe is better. It's conducive for family life for me. In general, I still think Europe is way better than the United States as far as culture and slowing down. And so work-life balance is more kind of respected in the eastern part for me. That's what I've experienced, and a lot of other people that I've talked to, they feel the same way. So getting back to the comparisons between, if you're thinking about these two countries, and then I'll talk about other ones as well, like Poland. That's more Western, but it still has a Eastern culture vibe to it when you're there. And also Serbia. People are interested in Serbia. They're interested in Bulgaria. So those will be my next videos to compare each other with those types of countries. Croatia as well. I lived in Croatia for a little while, love it, but that's another story. So I'll get back to that. But to compare North Macedonia, Skopje specifically, it's a capital city, and Albania with with, yeah, let's say Tirana and Vlorë. Those are the two places I stayed the longest. So I would say, if you know, the difference between Albania with regard to the culture is that it's kind of similar, except it's, you know, Albanians are more busier. They do seem to move, especially if you're in Toronto, the capital city. It's very busy. Not like busy as, you know, New York or, you know, LA or something like that, but busy, probably the busiest in Albania. But Albanian people are very welcoming also. But they're a little bit more transactional, I must admit that. Whereas in North Macedonia, it's not as busy. They drive better. They speak more English than the Albanians do, which surprised me. They're open as well. I might have mentioned that they're very open, but they are do move to a slower pace and seem to be a little bit more relaxed than and less transactional. So, what do I mean when I say less transactional? Okay, so it's not anything offensive. I'm not, it's, you know, anything in a bad way, depending on who you are and what makes you feel more comfortable. And when I say transactional, I just mean, you know, it's going to be, for example, when you are, you know, choosing your apartment or, you know, buying things and things like that from the locals, I mean, it's going to be more about, you know, the money, because and not to say that they do it in a mean way. It's not like that. It's just that, you know, this is a transactional thing. It's not very personal yet. And I'm not saying that with all Albanians, but it's what I've experienced, and it's not a bad thing. It's just something that you have to know. And when you know that, you know, you might, you know, be, you might relax a little bit as far as that. And but as far as when I'm in North Macedonia, I feel it's less transactional. It is what it is, and you know, it's more flexible too. And what I'm saying is, you know, getting an apartment, or and you have to meet with the owners or whatever, whoever's representing the owners. You meet with them, or even in a little small restaurant or a cafe, you know, it's less transactional. You'll get a conversation, a longer conversation first. And, you know, and then the meals, you know, are, to me, I feel like there's more, because I love Albanian food too. So I must say that. But North Macedonian food is very good. But what makes it even better is the hospitality that comes with it. I do feel like the food is more authentic. Now, maybe the locals may say something different, but for me, after traveling around, I noticed that the food here in North Macedonia, even in the city center, feels more authentic. So when I'm saying authentic, I mean, it's not like they are just, you know, like some places, and that's just not Albania, but a lot of touristy places. If you go somewhere to eat, you know, there, you're not going to get like the true, you know, deep down home, you know, the way they really make the food in the city center. You're normally not going to get that. They're going to kind of water it down for you, and it's going to be like the tour. I call it the touristy food. But you learn that from traveling. So you don't really know when you're just traveling or on tour or you're a tourist. But you know, in North Macedonia, I didn't feel that. I felt the food was, you know, no matter where you are, it was good. And I love that the people explain which did what dishes what. You know, if I asked what do they recommend, they was always so proud to recommend, you know, something great. And that's another thing. I feel like a lot of Macedonians are very proud of their country. And there's some that, you know, the younger people are different, you know, but that's everywhere around the world, you know, even with, you know, my home's country, you know, United States. It's like, you know, someone say, oh, I love the United States. Of course, I'm born and raised there. I'm going to say, it's not that special. But, you know, we do that because we're used to it. And that's the same, you know, with a lot of younger people in some of these countries. Of course, they don't appreciate how special it is. So anyway, I'm going to close it up and say that with North Macedonia, I do feel like it's more, I get a more of a authentic feel for their culture. And I feel a little bit more welcome. My stress level goes down a little bit more. The only thing I don't like is that they don't have a whole a big transportation, you know, type of situation. They do more than Albania. I will say that. There's more buses here. There's a train here. So it's, Yeah, they do have a train also here, but it's connected within the city. They do have one that used to be connected to the other parts like Serbia and even Albania, but they're working on the tracks at this time. So I'm not able to, or no one's able to travel to other countries. But within the country here, like to Lake Ohrid, which is a beautiful lake here in North Macedonia, places like that you can go to by train or by bus. But the taxi system, it's better than Albania. I will say that. But I wish it was better as far as, they don't have Uber. They have their own type of app for taxi apps. But it's difficult for me to get that taxi app without a phone number. So I have to get a phone number and then be able to use the taxi app. But using the regular taxis is sketchy and is trial and error. And you have to find out from a local which ones to use, which I've done. So I'll go back to what I was saying about the locals too, and how I feel my nervous system goes down a little bit when I first arrive in a country. And this is one that like I said, being that it feels less transactional. I can be able to kind of, like I said before, when I'm renting an apartment, speaking with the owners, we can kind of, negotiate the price if it's on low season or high season, and it's good. Whereas in Albania, you don't really have that wiggle room to negotiate prices. They are all about their money. But like I said, that's just the way it is. If whatever your deal breakers are, it may be good, it may be bad. But overall, the cultures are the same as far as the people, as far as feeling more relaxed and lower. If you're comparing it to the West, it's much better if you're looking for something that's slower paced. And it's a good place to, kind of base yourself until you figure out what you really want. But it is a good place to base yourself if you're trying to figure out where you want to either move to permanently, or come and, if you're trying out other countries, it's a good place to base yourself and then travel to other countries and check them out. And that's what I actually recommend, that you base yourself in a place that you can stay longer term, like Albania, and I would say even Georgia. Georgia is a little further off, so you would have, if you're trying to visit other countries, you would have to fly a little bit more, take the flights more. Whereas if you're somewhere in Albania, you can fly, or you could take, the bus, or you could take, different trains, fly into a nearby city like Italy, and then take the train into the other places, like Germany or France and places like that. So it's easier to get around if you base yourself somewhere like, Albania or North Macedonia or Serbia, or, somewhere like this. And then you can kind of get around to the other countries and see what works for you, because it's all about you. It's a personal thing. And just don't take my content or what I say. Do your own research, find out what fits for you. Everybody has deal breakers. Everybody have things that they like and don't like, and you have to factor that in. My deal breakers, are what they are, and I stop ignoring them and just, realize that if you go to places and you just say, okay, I can deal with it, even though normally you wouldn't deal with those type of things, it's not going to work. Be true and be real about what your needs are, and then just go from there, because it's a fun experience. But I hope this information, also was good for you. And so I hope this information was helpful for you, because, when I first started traveling, I was hoping that I would get a lot of information. And when I started traveling, it wasn't much out there about, people who are moving and living abroad, or even just traveling like this. It was a small amount of content, but not like the way there is now out there. So I hope I'm able to, at least help someone who are considering these two countries. And okay, and hope to see you again, and subscribe to my channel if you want more content, or, look around on my channel for other countries that you might be interested in, because I did post a few of the other countries I lived in. And stay tuned for more content. It may come slow, but it's coming. So anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.